where do you think the offensive issues are coming from right now? Obviously, that's a great defense.
Issues coming from?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a guy that averaged 37 a game. What did he average, 35 this year? 33 and a half?
Yeah.
I mean, what are you asking?
Okay, well, I'm asking, like, you guys...
There's the issues right there. We're playing against the #1 defensive team in the NBA.
The Los Angeles Lakers are supposed to be one of the smoothest stories in basketball right now. They have a generational superstar in LeBron James, a head coach who is not afraid to speak his mind, and a roster that, on paper, should be good enough to keep them in the conversation. But the reality inside the building, according to the reports and the reactions coming out of the organization, looks a lot messier than the polished image fans see on TV. As far as the ratings and everything, when you play against great defenses, you have to have guys that can attract multiple defenders on the floor at all times. Even I feel like we had great shots. We got some great shots tonight. We missed them. When you play against the world champions, having a guy that averages 34, 6, and 8, and 9, whatever the hell, that's special. Because right now, the story is not just about wins and losses. It is about tension. It is about frustration. It is about a locker room that seems to have split into different camps and a head coach who finally got fed up enough to say what a lot of people around the league have apparently been thinking for a while. And once JJ Redick started speaking that truth out loud, everything inside the Los Angeles Lakers organization started to feel different. This is the part nobody likes to talk about when it comes to LeBron James. The public image is still massive. The brand is still powerful. The legacy is still protected by years of greatness, championships, records, and unforgettable moments. But inside the locker room, the game is not played on reputation. It is played on trust, execution, and accountability. And according to the source, that is exactly where things started to break down. The trouble really picked up around Christmas Day 2025 when the Los Angeles Lakers got blown out 119-96 by the Houston Rockets. That was not just a bad loss. It was one of those games that leaves a stain. The Houston Rockets were moving with energy, making quick decisions, and playing with the kind of flow that makes a good team look unstoppable. Meanwhile, the Los Angeles Lakers looked disconnected. They looked like a team still trying to figure out who was supposed to be in charge of what, who was supposed to be where, and why the whole thing felt so disorganized. And that is where the tension started to boil. This loss hurt even more because it came right after LeBron James returned from injury. That timing matters. It was not some random game in the middle of a long season. It was one of the first big moments where the team was supposed to show that they were back to being whole again. Instead, the opposite happened. The energy changed, the rhythm changed, the chemistry changed, and suddenly people inside and outside the building started asking the same question. Why does everything seem to fall apart the moment LeBron James comes back? That question is what made JJ Redick's press conferences so explosive. He did not just lightly hint at the issue. He kept circling the same problem over and over. The offense was messy. The execution was sloppy. The spacing was bad. The rotations were off. The reads were wrong. And every time he spoke, the message got clearer and clearer. He was frustrated, and he was done pretending otherwise. After the loss to the Houston Rockets, JJ Redick walked into the press conference with a different tone. It was not the calm, polished, coach-speak kind of answer people are used to hearing. It had an edge. It had irritation. It had the energy of someone tired of seeing the same mistakes repeat themselves over and over. He talked about the confusion, the broken actions, the constant miscommunication, and the team's inability to line things up properly on the fly. That is what really made people sit up, because when a coach starts publicly sounding like the operation is out of control, the message is never just about one game. It is about the whole structure. And according to the source, JJ Redick had already been sending those warnings for weeks. Back on December 27, 2025, after the Los Angeles Lakers lost to the Los Angeles Clippers, he spoke even more directly. He admitted that the team had not been clean in its execution since LeBron James came back. He also took some responsibility, which coaches often do when they want to soften the blow, but the implication was still loud enough for everyone to hear. The Los Angeles Lakers had looked more organized before LeBron James returned. Once he came back into the lineup, the flow disappeared. He's hearing that noise, bro. You can't tell me he's not hearing that noise. He's not like, oh, you see, he has kids. Yeah, they sure came out like, why does everyone pay me out to be the villain now? I'm like, bro, stop. LeBron James handles it, though. He never says nothing. He handles it like the king. He keeps it professional. But again, when you're comparing the two, like why the hell would Bron answer to Dylan Brooks? Exactly. Who are you? What have you done? Why am I even having this with you? That is the part that stings, because when you are talking about LeBron James, you are not talking about a random role player. You are talking about one of the most dominant and influential players in basketball history. So when the team seems to get better without him, or at least more cohesive, the conversation becomes unavoidable. It is no longer a question of star power. It becomes a question of fit, spacing, timing, and whether the rest of the roster actually functions better when the ball is moving through a more balanced system. And the source makes a very strong claim here. Before LeBron James returned from his sciatica issue, the Los Angeles Lakers were rolling. They were winning. They were playing fast, connected basketball. Luka Doncic was controlling the offense. Austin Reeves was cooking. And Rui Hachimura was giving them valuable scoring and defense. The team looked alive. The offense had structure. Players seemed comfortable. Nobody was standing around waiting for the entire possession to collapse into one superstar isolation. That matters because it tells the story of a team that had found a rhythm without its longtime centerpiece. Take those games against the New Orleans Pelicans, for example. In one matchup, Luka Doncic was running the show, Austin Reeves was scoring in bunches, and Rui Hachimura was doing his part within the flow of the offense. In the rematch, the same thing happened. Good ball movement, clean execution, smart spacing, and players actually trusting the system. That is the kind of basketball that makes a team look dangerous. That is also the kind of basketball that becomes fragile when one player comes back and starts dominating the ball again. And that brings us to the heart of the controversy. According to the source, the Lakers' defensive rating got worse after LeBron returned. The offense got choppier. The turnovers increased. The team went from looking disciplined to looking disjointed. The lineups that used to work suddenly started producing confusion. The stats were ugly. The eye test was ugly. And the locker room energy reportedly was ugly, too. That is why people started asking whether the problem was really about effort or whether it was about style, because there is a huge difference between a team that plays with a controlled system and a team that has to adjust around one player's comfort zone. If the supporting cast is thriving before the return of a dominant ball handler and then everything becomes more complicated when he comes back, that is not a coincidence that fans are going to ignore. They are going to notice, and once they notice, they are going to talk. Redick did not stop there either. He kept hammering the point that the Lakers were making too many mistakes that had nothing to do with bad luck. Too many turnovers, too many sloppy reads, too many broken sets, too many possessions where the wrong decision was made at the wrong time. And when he said the team was not valuing the basketball, that was not some random comment. That was a warning shot. It is one thing for a coach to say a team needs to tighten up. It is another thing entirely for him to say the system is collapsing because players are not making the right reads and not running the plays properly. That is when people start wondering whether there is a deeper issue inside the locker room. And then came the confrontation energy. The source suggests that after the Christmas Day embarrassment, Redick and LeBron went at it behind closed doors. That kind of thing is always hard to verify from the outside, but the body language and the tone of the reporting point toward a real shift in the relationship. It did not feel like the usual coach-player disagreement. It felt bigger, more personal, more structural. What made it even more interesting was the reaction from DeAndre Ayton. When asked about Redick saying that practice and meetings were going to be uncomfortable, he laughed it off. That laugh said more than a long speech ever could, because when a coach is publicly saying he is tired of the mess and the players respond with a grin, it creates the sense that nobody in that room wants to fully confront the problem out loud. That is the kind of dynamic that can quietly poison a locker room. And then there is the LeBron factor, which changes everything. The source points out that Ayton himself basically admitted that not everybody feels comfortable telling LeBron what to do on the court. That is a huge statement. If true, It helps explain why the environment can feel so tense, because once a player reaches a level of status where teammates and even coaches start handling him carefully, the balance of accountability gets shaky. Nobody wants to be the person who challenges the throne. Nobody wants to be the teammate who says, "Hey, this is not working." Nobody wants to be the coach who forces the superstar into a role he does not want. And that fear can quietly shape every decision inside the building. That is also why history matters so much. The source brings up the familiar pattern from LeBron's past teams. Coaches get brought in, things work for a while, then friction builds, then the pressure rises, then the coach becomes the easiest person to blame. David Blatt in Cleveland, Frank Vogel in Los Angeles, even the long-standing tension with other coaches around the league has built this reputation that follows LeBron everywhere. Whether that reputation is entirely fair is another question, but it exists. And because it exists, every new confrontation gets viewed through the same lens. So when JJ Redick, a first-year coach in the public imagination, even if he is not acting like one, decided to call out disorganization and accountability issues, people immediately saw it as more than one bad press conference. They saw it as a challenge to LeBron's control of the environment. They saw it as a coach refusing to shrink. They saw it as the kind of moment that can force a franchise to choose between comfort and honesty. And this is what Draymond Green said: "If you invest time in said thing, you get better at that thing, and that thing then does more for you than you necessarily do for the game. I've invested so much time in basketball. Basketball now does more for me than I do for the game of basketball. So if you can invest your time in said thing, you can possibly be great at something. So you probably should not invest your time and wonder about our relationship." But yeah, how I separate the two, though, is like at the end of the day, I'm trying to win these basketball games and I'm trying to win these championships. And that choice is always dangerous because if a team sides with the coach, the superstar might feel disrespected. If a team sides with the superstar, the coach loses authority. If the front office tries to stay neutral, everybody notices. The tension lingers, and in a locker room full of grown men, that kind of uncertainty can destroy trust faster than any missed shot. That is why the numbers matter so much in this story. The source makes a strong case that the Lakers' best basketball came before LeBron returned, not after. Before. That is a brutal thing to say about a player of his caliber, but it is exactly why this topic has exploded. Fans are not just reacting to drama. They are reacting to evidence that the team actually looked more functional without him dominating the offense. And when Luka Doncic is the guy running the show, that becomes even more obvious. Luka has changed the direction of the franchise. That is not small talk. That is not a hot take. That is the reality the Lakers seem to be building toward. He is the new centerpiece. He is the player with the long-term future. He is the one setting the tone for how the offense moves, how the ball circulates, and how the team develops its identity. The Lakers knew that when they brought him in, and the source makes it clear that his arrival shifted the franchise timeline. What makes Luka so valuable in this conversation is not just that he scores. It is that he organizes, he controls, he fits, and he gives the rest of the roster room to breathe. Reeves gets better, Rui gets better, the role players get better, the offense looks smarter, the decisions come faster, and the game feels more connected. That is the exact opposite of what happens when the offense becomes too LeBron-centered. And that is the hardest part for fans to process. Nobody is denying LeBron's greatness. Nobody is pretending he is suddenly not one of the greatest players ever. That is not the argument. The argument is whether his style, his presence, and his need to control the game are still helping this current Lakers team more than they are hurting it. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe for more NBA stories, locker room drama, and deep dive basketball content like this. And drop your thoughts in the comments because this Lakers situation is only getting more intense from here.